So with handsome Mr. Zeus, ready, sir? I know we were just discussing a little bit earlier about, your front end and hind end awareness, working a little bit with some engagement with that loose leash walking with some of those other targets on the ground. So there are what are called cavalettis, which are these kind of like almost like they look like little jumps, and they normally have cones that have holes in them so you can adjust the level at which it's up off the floor or the ground. An agility ladder or even using a regular ladder from home could be another great option. The benefit again of using items where your babes have to think about their front and back end is it's great for just in general conditioning, but it's also really nice to prevent injuries. So the benefit of getting your babe fluid with knowing how to use their front and back end means that they're going to be much more comfortable doing it in other scenarios or different environments or with different things. I think I remember, I want to say you guys at one point were saying that you'd be interested in doing like agility down the road for even for fun. If I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. But if, for example, you are thinking about it, it can be nice to start working on some of these foundations first. Because just like with anything, if you don't have the basics down, basics are technically advanced skills down the road, but refined. So if we don't have a good foundation, then you don't really have a good end result. So I know I do have his dog bed out here as well, so we could work a little bit with place and working some of those stays in a little bit. But I wanted to start off with the agility ladder flipped upside down. So ready, we'll do another, we'll find it. So obviously as I'm blabbing, I try to keep him engaged, working a few other skills. Find it's are one of my favorite dance moves for him and for most of the beauties because it gives them something to rock while I'm either warming them up or getting them in the groove. But it also starts to create this gorgeous engagement where he goes and gets distracted and he comes right back into my space. I could also feed him for as he comes into my bubble to, again, make sure that he realizes that coming towards me is also what gives you a great moment. But he, like most dogs, loves to chase or forage or find their snacks. And I'm just going to quickly grab a drink. I'm so sorry again, trying to avoid the coughing tickle fits. Hi, handsome boy. He says, lady, don't make the snacks stop. So if he, again, is out of practice when it comes to the agility ladder, the reason I like to flip it upside down is it's not raised up off the ground and he doesn't have to pick up his feet at the same time while trying to figure out where to put them. So the benefit of this is it makes it just a little bit easier for when you're first starting something. Just like when you're exposing to anything, I would recommend gauge your babe's comfort range with items on the ground or novel equipment. If they're ever worried or overwhelmed, I would, for example, sometimes practice just moving in and around the item and make it no big deal. So like obviously right now we're just cutting through the shorter end of the agility ladder. So it doesn't have to be, again, perfection. It's more just gauging what is my babe's comfort range for trying this novel thing, like putting your body in and around it. So if that was already too scary, I wouldn't expect then the full behavior from the handsome guy by flipping it over and just going right to town. So let's say I'm going to do a little find it just to get him up and wiggling. I'm going to go ahead and see, ready, Zeus? Get his attention on me. We're going to try a little bit. He's like, did you throw it? I'm going to try to see if we can go ahead and get him to work through the bubble. Nice. So he did crash a little bit in the beginning, not bad. So if you're finding that your puppy is not always knowing where to go, the problem with sometimes luring him over a agility ladder like this is when they're looking at your hand in front of them, they don't always gauge like the depth and they have a hard time seeing like right in front of their noses. So if you're finding that he's tripping, try not to lure him over it if you're finding he's more focused on the food and forgetting where, oh, good stretching. Oh my goodness, you getting pooped out. What a tired man. Good job, my lovey. So, but let's say going through the agility ladder is difficult for him because he is following the hand and not looking where he's putting his feet, then he might trip or get into more trouble that way. So ready? We might try again. He's like, no, I was hoping for those stays already. Ready? So we'll get him up and wiggling. So you can sometimes hear him clinking on the agility ladder. He is a bigger gentleman, so he maybe thinks, oh my goodness, taking little baby steps like this is a little challenging. That was very nice. But he's doing a stellar job. So some of the babes do find this to be a little bit peculiar. They've never done it. Obviously, if you've got shorter puppies, you could technically not even put in the legs, but then have it raised a few inches just by having some of the PVC little ends on the floor. So let's say he's doing a real nice job, not too shabby with his going over the agility ladder. Two, I think his toenails, I know you guys are trying to work on toe time, and he's kind of sensitive with his feet. So my Rhodesian mix was also very sensitive with his toesies. So we ended up doing a scratch board with my most recent dogs, because back in the day I didn't know there were such a thing. And that was like years and years ago. So definitely check out some of the cooperative care with Deb Jones, even if, for example, and she's got a book as well as like a YouTube videos as well, and a Facebook page that is private. So it's cooperative care with Deb Jones. And she does a lot of really great skills for handling when it comes to groomer, the vet, medical procedures. And then that way your babe feels more comfortable when those things maybe have to happen. So for Mr. Z, I'm just going to get his attention. We're going to try a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and do ladder. Yes, nice. So if your babe, you're pretty certain they're going to do well with something, or you think they're going to be able to offer that skill, I do preemptively then cue them with the slogan. So this is going to be, again, ladder. And if he's a little unsure, I might sort of help him. Ready? Let's go. He's like, how about a round? So if your babe sometimes gets a little confused, don't worry. So remember, he is just trying to figure out what the heck this game is. So ready, ladder. Yes, nice job. So if this was really challenging and he was like, that is sort of silly, I would also feed him for every little attempt. So if, let's say, he really couldn't handle it, we could maybe work across the short way for the agility ladder and get him comfortable that way. Ready, ladder. Yes, nice job. My boy, he really loves the agility ladder. Yes, nice work. But you can almost see like he's getting a little bit more comfortable with it. Just like with anything, don't make it go for so long that he thinks it's almost like boot camp and he can't wait to just be done. So we want to make training be easy, attainable, and fun for everybody. So if it's more of a chore or it's a pain in the butt from his perspective, he may not want to rock it. So ladder. And you'll see that I do slow down my gait. Yes, because I don't want him to feel that he has to rush and then step funny for while he's trying to keep up with me. But he's trying to take his time so he knows where to put those legs. So ready, ladder. He says, what if we take a little pit stop? That was very nice. Not too shabby, sir. So, but I know he's getting pooped out. So we'll maybe give him a little breather. Ready, Zeusy? We'll do a little find it. We're just going to move the agility ladder a little bit out of range, just so we can go ahead and work a little bit more with his bed. But definitely keep training sessions short and sweet. You are going to have so much greater success, even if it's simple things like, you know, working sits, working downs, working recalls. Nice job, sir. And hopefully I'm not too close. I think we can see him pretty well from there. Hi, my lovey. Got a little hair. There we go. So let's say we're going to go ahead, so sorry, and get him onto his bed. How about your caboose? Nice. You handsome boy. That's very pretty. So if we know he does better, I was just going to say it, in his down, go ahead and set him up in the position your babe is much more successful in. So I'm going to cough drop for me, dog snacks for you. So if he does better in a down position, might as well start there, especially if that helps him veg and relax and start to practice relaxation in all the right ways. So I'm going to tell him to stay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of distraction. So I might actually go grab a drink real quick, do some moving around. He says, that sounds really entertaining. So remember that when you are practicing with place behaviors or working those stays as well, is I would start to implement like your normal sort of routine or the way you move around in that space. So if we become very robotic and kind of weird in our movements, the dog might think the only time we can do a stay is when you're being like that weird robot. So they're very visual learners. So I would start to implement like doing your typical norm, which could be loading the dishwasher, going and sitting at the table, maybe going and moving some stuff around, and then see how they handle it. and then go from there. Nice. So I could either be also feeding him directly. I'm technically sometimes for my downs, I like to feed the dog while they're eating it off the dog bed or blanket or cot. I feel like for a lot of the dogs, it helps them stay low because the food is coming from the mat and not necessarily coming where he has to reach me to make the snack go into his mouth. So this way it kind of can create some more value in being in that down or vegging sort of situation. So again, just making a little bit of noise, moving some of my stuff around a little. And I know last time, like the door was challenging, you know, so we sometimes can practice like door behaviors. Like maybe he goes and works his bed exercise and you go and practice moving something that could be harder for him. So again, I might play with my door, and this is like the door that goes outside, which this one is much more stimulating for the dogs because that's how they go out to go to the restroom, but that's also how they exit the building. So when it's time to like head back home, so there's a lot more of an emotional response to this doorway. So I know we mentioned it a little bit last time. So like right there, notice how he hears the door and he got a little excited. So he's not in trouble, but I might go, Zeus, ready, bed. And remember that if you are now adding a higher level of difficulty, ready down, to certain setups, you might have to, again, help generalize that skill. So if your babe finds some setup to be so challenging they can't function, you might have to go to the level where they were being successful and stay there for a little bit longer and then build in some of that difficulty. So I'm going to, again, feed him for holding this lovely stay. Drop my snack. I'll go get that one so it's not as distracting. Here, we'll bring it back to you, sir. So again, while he's in that stay, I'm just going to do a little bit of the easier version. So I might just go move some items around, move around the environment myself. Nice. And then as he's getting more comfortable, I might do a little bit again with the door. And this time not open it, but maybe do some wiggles. So that's a level below where he was having that difficult moment. And then that way we're building into that concept for him. So, but remember, if your puppy fails, which means like from this perspective, he got up and wiggled, they're not trying to be bad or, you know, not listen. They, again, are doing whatever has maybe worked for them in the past, or they're just guessing what the heck you want from them. So if your babe is really not being very successful with some stuff, is it because we've actually taught the exercise? Or have we ever worked it in the real world scenario? Or have we ever added that much difficulty to that dynamic? So a lot of times pups might know certain skills in a much calmer, more vacuum-esque scenario, but then cannot even manage the beginning stages of those skills in a more challenging environment. Nice. What a smart boy. Good job, handsome man. I know, I wish you could see him. He's, of course, staring at me this direction. I always end up with their cabooses facing the camera, and I'm sorry, because he's such a handsome man. So, but when you want to end your stay, remember, you don't call your babe from their stay. That would be your wait. So wait would be wait, and I could call you through the doorway, or wait, and I'm going to release you to go grab that toy. It could be wait, and then you're going to go get your meal, or whatever it might be. I don't love the nothing in life is free mentality where your dog has to earn every single thing, even from like your affection to like a snack. So I would make sure to sometimes just do things because it makes you and him happy. I know there's some folks that would be like, well, you really have to make sure he earns everything. And it's like, that would be like me saying, well, I need to make sure my child earns my attention or earns my love or earns like a hug. And I feel like that's a little bit silly. So sometimes just love him up because he's adorable. But let's say, again, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to feed him his last snack for this interval. And again, I'm not saying you guys are doing it, but I know sometimes as I'm blabbing, I'm also just trying to educate others that may not be a student so they realize that those methods are not always necessarily the greatest for most relationships. So again, we're going to say all done. And we're going to try and get Mr. Z to get up. He's like, I'm pooped out, lady, but I really like the bed. Ready? We'll get up. He's like, that seems silly. Zeusy, ready? He's like, hold on, there's a crumb. You're so tired. So if there's ever a moment where your puppy gets stuck and you've tried to do the all done, we're finished, I sometimes just kind of go, get his attention, lure him, but my hand is empty. Good boy. And we get up and we take a break. For being up, I could feed him for maybe coming into my space. I could then ask him for some eyeballs. I could do maybe a little sit, but I'm not feeding him for the releasing of the stay. If he's getting food for leaving it and for staying in it, I feel that for some of them, they start to think there's more of an easier setup, which is leaving versus holding back. Nice job. Look at you being brilliant. Squeaky bed, sorry. So good job, my love. So notice how he on his own is then going and targeting the mat. He's now starting to realize, but it doesn't get stuck in his jowls, that there's a lot of really great value in going and taking a moment on his dog bed. So definitely throw in some of these practice moments where you're creating this dynamic where having them take breaks is not you're in trouble or you're driving me bonkers or, like get out of the way. I want him to think like, going to your little target mat equals a lot of really cool stuff is coming your way. And then that way, going and vegging starts to become something that is beneficial from his perspective. And then he'd like to do it again. Nice job, sir. So, and if this was not going as well, I would not be adding so much distance. I would not be adding so much of my duration between the snacks. I would not be adding tons of other distractions as well. Nice. So again, he's getting some of those goodies. I might go and make some noises again. What a brilliant boy. 2, I know today is their last session for this round. I know the next one starting in January because I took a little bit of time off because it's just crazy with the holidays and they always land on like some of the days that I do some of the skills. So then the kids have vacation too for some of the holiday time. So the next round was going to be starting, I want to say mid-January, but I believe that one is already full. If you guys are thinking about continuing, I think I added the next one after January too. But if you have any trouble, let me know. If you're taking a break, perfectly okay. I know I did just add my field trips class, which is where, again, we're going to do the advanced skills, which are, again, basics but refined, but in the, outdoor or indoor novel settings. So the advanced field trips class was added to the schedule. So that would be something that maybe potentially you guys may want to check out, but no pressure. But otherwise, we're going to call it a day for Mr. Z. This was some really, really beautiful practice for him, and he did a very nice job as well. So we'll give you a little tidbit for holding this beautiful stay, and then we'll take a little break. But what a good job, sir. What a brilliant man, Mr. Z.